In a cinematic landscape before the dawn of the MCU, the director of Brokeback Mountain and The Life of Pi dared to make a superhero film. 2003's Hulk, directed by Ang Lee, was released on June 20th, 2003, making it 21 years old during the making of this video, which means it's time to buy the film its first drink. Hi, and welcome to Buying a Film Its First Drink, the show where a film turns 21, we buy it a drink, and we tell you what we think. I'm your host, Dalton Sherrill, and today I'm joined by Dalton and Grubbs. And today we're going to be talking about Hulk 2003, directed by Ang Lee. Today I am drinking a Heineken Premium Malt Lager. Grubbs, what are you drinking today?
Today I am drinking a fine Pilsner beer, Miller Lite.
And that's what Ang Lee and the Hulk will be having in spirit. You know, a fine Pilsner Miller Lite that we have sitting here on the table for him. Just to get into some spoiler-free thoughts about the film, Grubbs, what did you think about it?
Honestly, I think it held up good for what it is. Like, it's probably more comic accurate than I thought it would be. After watching it for the first time since I was really young, I didn't really pay attention to it until recently. And I think it's still, good for what it held up for. But it's still kind of bad, but it's also good.
Hulk 2003 is one that's kind of notoriously hated in the comic book community. In truth, Jackson was the only one who would, watch the film with me, to be completely honest. It's something that I wanted to give a rewatch. Do you think it deserves all the hate that it gets?
Not entirely. Sure, the movie has some bad moments. But the movie also has some good moments as well, which I think maybe they will overlook too much. I think most people should probably rewatch it again.
This is a very stylistic film. A lot of the scenes take place in comic book panels, and we have these very smooth transitions and this really interesting editing style. Personally, I think this is the film's greatest strength and its weakness. I think that it was so close to maybe just being really refined in a lot of areas. I think of the opening scene of the film when Brian Banner is pretty much coming up with the Hulk gene and he's experimenting on the starfish, and you've got the shots of the iguana and all of his lab notes. That looked beautiful. I feel like the opening sequence is an example of where this editing style works in the film, but as you'll hear about later in this review, there are moments later on where there's some military involvement just because that is the nature of the film. We're dealing with the Hulk here, and I can think of this particular sequence where soldiers are rolling up in Humvees, and we kind of just have the multiple shots broken up into all these different panels, and there's motion in each of them, and it's just really hard to look at and disorienting. The film's shot very well. It's a beautiful looking film. Another thing that I like about it is this is probably the most comic accurate version of the Hulk himself that we see in any feature film.
Right, and this is before Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk ever came out, and this was a few years before. Right,
this is the first Hulk film since the end of, Dr. David Banner, the original Incredible Hulk TV show.
Yeah.
The last Hulk movie that came out before this was in 1990, The Death of the Incredible Hulk, so it had been a minute. Another strength of this film is Danny Elfman's score. It feels very mysterious. Makes me think about the Hulk transforming, the
Right.
It's very scientific and high energy and kind of keeps you on your toes. It's uncertain. You don't really know what's going to happen. Danny Elfman, he scored a lot of these superhero films. He made the Michael Keaton Batman theme, and he also scored the Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, so his music fits right in this, superhero film. In a spoiler-free manner, what did you not like about this movie?
I think there was just too many flashbacks. And it's mostly just about Bruce Banner's childhood. But there was also a little bit of Eddie Ross.
Right, that's another thing that I was kind of thinking I don't really care for in the film, is we keep cutting back to this same moment in his childhood, and it's just kind of plaguing the movie going forward. And I get the importance of it because it ends up being this sort of father-son story, and it kind of focuses around that. But
right, it's just very, very repetitive.
It's repetitive, it's just a little much.
Yeah.
The dialogue is very dull and uninteresting. There aren't very many memorable lines of dialogue in this film. It makes great actors like Jennifer Connelly and Sam Elliott just kind of come off flat just because of the script that they're reading. And if you've seen them in any other films, you know that they're incredible actors.
Yeah.
And another thing that I kind of just struggle with is the relationships between the characters. Bruce Banner and Betty's relationship kind of seems fake. Betty and General Ross's relationship kind of seems a little fake. Like, I don't really believe it. The way that Bruce Banner acts in the film, like his demeanor, it doesn't make any sense for Betty to really be pining over him, you know?
Yeah.
So now we're going to move into the spoiler section of this review. So if you don't want to get spoiled for Hulk 2003, a 21-year-old film, go ahead and click away. But if you want to get into the fine details of this gamma bomb of a movie, go ahead, sit down, crack open a beer, and let's get into it. What are some of your favorite moments in this movie?
I think one of my favorite moments in the movie is his transformation. It's probably one of the best scenes to ever happen in the movie. And I think it's like his first time letting the Hulk out.
Right.
And it happened all in the lab.
It's really cool. It's kind of like dark. I think it's very poetic that the first time he turns into the Hulk, it's in a lab, just because he is this lab experiment. You know, that's what his father did to him.
Right.
And so for him to be kind of Hulk, be born in this lab, so to speak, that's kind of poetic.
Right.
And I mean, you could really say this for every transformation scene. This has a lot of memorable transformations. But he's the guy that is also pining over Betty and trying to compete for her affection, the guy with the blonde hair.
Right.
He pulls up to Bruce's house and, you know, they're going to take him away and he's like, nah. We get, I believe, his second transformation into the Hulk. But this time we actually get to see him and just the facial expressions that Eric Bana's making and like the shaking of the camera. Like, I was really into it as a kid. In fact, it scared the daylights out of me just seeing the face that he made and him turning green. Like,
Right.
It was awesome.
And it's probably just more scary than MCU, Mark Ruffalo. Like, Mark Ruffalo, he's like cool, and it wasn't really scary. He's just there.
That's something we talked a little bit about whenever we were watching this film. I was like, I can't really think of many memorable Hulk transformations in the MCU from like Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. I mean, it was cool in the Avengers whenever he turns and he stops the giant, you know, space whale.
Right.
But that's one of the only ones I can really think of. They don't really, not a lot of attention gets put on the Hulk these days.
Not really.
And it's very unfortunate because he's such a cool character.
Well, if you've been following along the MCU, you can see how that turned out for him.
But with every good thing I have to say about this film, I have something bad to say. I think of first time that Hulk comes out. Do you remember the scene where it was almost like this vision and Hulk opens a door?
Right.
And he's just standing in the threshold, just kind of waiting. That was so cheesy and random.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't even angry or anything.
He was just standing there.
Right.
Another scene that I really liked is whenever Bruce is shaving and then the Hulk busts through the glass of the mirror and he grabs him. Mm-hmm. That was a really interesting scene.
Right, but he doesn't even, you know, just like punch him out or anything. It's just stop him.
And then another one of my favorite scenes is Hulk escaping the base at the end of the film and fighting the military. I think from the moment, you know, they're trying to extract his gene, you know, whenever he's in that water tank and he starts to transform and, you know, the soldiers come out and, you know, they're firing on him, they can't do anything, and he escapes from the building. But you also have the moment where, like, he gets foamed up in the hallway, and you've got the blonde dude coming up, and he puts that, like, needle in his neck. He's trying to extract his blood or some DNA, but his skin's too strong at this point.
Right, he was getting bigger in the process too, right?
Right, and the angrier they make him, the bigger he's getting, and that's something that I really do love about this Hulk, and I wish that it was an aspect of the Hulk that we had gotten in the MCU. Like, maybe this Hulk could have taken on Thanos.
Right.
I feel like that's an aspect of the character that you've got to keep. The angrier he gets, the bigger and stronger, just because it's just how it's always been. There's also the scene between him and his dad, and this is after he's had his full showdown with the military, and they take him to that private base, and they're talking underneath the spotlight, and his dad's kind of yelling at him, and really, really good performance by Nick Nolte, if I'm saying his name correctly. Like, that was probably one of the best performances in a film with, you know, very underwhelming dialogue and performances.
Right.
So, following this confrontation between Bruce and his father, you get the showdown between Hulk and Absorbing Man, which was pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, but I didn't really enjoy that fight all that too much. I think I really enjoyed the military fight more.
True.
But the fight with his dad, it was all too dark.
Yeah, the lighting's not the best in the scene, and
He started out with electricity, and then he turned into a sort of a
rock. What he's saying during this fight is he's talking about his power and how he wants it, and Hulk's just kind of in the water, and he starts to get smaller because he is absorbing some of the of the gamma radiation.
Yeah, and then towards the end, he's like, you know what? You want it? Take it all.
Take it all, and that's probably maybe one of the best moments from Eric Bana in this film. I love the mix of his voice and Hulk's voice, and near this fight's conclusion, the military just says, all right, gamma bomb them.
I mean, come on. Do you really think that we're gonna kill them anyway?
You see throughout the film that he's struggling with it, and sometimes he likes it, sometimes he doesn't like it, because there's a conversation that him and Betty have, like maybe midway through the film, and he's like, you know, I do feel powerful. I like the power that it gives me whenever I do transform. But at the same time, he's having these nightmares, you know, involving the Hulk and the path of destruction that he leaves, obviously. And yeah, it was a really cool moment. Now, some of my least favorite scenes in the film, Hulk fighting the Gamma Dogs at the cabin where, you know, him and Betty kind of had their little romantic getaway. What is up with that scene?
I think the Gamma Dog were only released just to see what kind of thing they can do to the Hulk, and what the Hulk can do, because this is like the first time the Hulk was like, you know, ever fighting.
It was a sort of way to test his abilities.
Right,
It was him still being the scientist and running a test, so to speak.
Right, yeah, but this is still the first time the Hulk fighting, and the Hulk was still trying to figure out how to do this and that.
Of all things, though, why Gamma Dogs? Hulk could have fought anything, and I'll say, one of the original pitches for this film I was reading, just because this was a movie that its development started in 1990, a whopping 13 years before it would come out. And from 1990 all the way up until probably like 2001, before they solidified the idea, the script kept going through many different drafts and different screenwriters, and there was one idea for Hulk to fight a bunch of sharks. And maybe I would have rather seen that than him fighting a bunch of gamma-radiated poodles, but regardless, both of the ideas are ridiculous.
Yeah, they're pretty ridiculous. Like, maybe he did read into the comic a little more. Maybe he should have thought of a better reason to do something about the Gamma Dog, but...
Maybe it's a callback to the childhood flashback that we get throughout most of this film, and he's playing with the little dog, and he's going, "Rawr," you know?
Right.
Maybe it's like... it's a callback, but like not a cool one at that.
Not a cool one. No, I mean, is it like a little bit of a foreshadowing? Maybe, but it's like a wasted fight.
Yeah.
For the Hulk, like at least gave us something interesting.
What did you think about the revelation that Betty was also there at the base whenever it blew up? And so their paths have kind of been, I don't know, intertwined for a while now. Like maybe destined to be with one another.
I thought it was pretty cool that Betty was there. Like in that abandoned desert town. Well, it was more of a military base.
Yeah.
But it was still a testing town.
And that's something you can also see in the showdown with the military. Whenever he breaks out of the base, he's trying to get away as far as possible. He's in the desert, and then you just see the tanks on the horizon coming towards us like, oh man, I can't get away from him. But he's not trying to kill them. He turns the gun of the tank on itself, and he's grabbing the tank and shaking people out of it, and don't they dispatch a jet to come and kill him, and he hops on it, and then...
Dude, like, that's just insane. He only woke up just a few days ago.
Right. There was a lot of cool spectacle in the fight with the military. You know, you had him running along, it looked like Arizona, right? We're almost in like the Grand Canyon looking area. He's running along the side of these canyons, and they're gunning him down with helicopters, and he's fighting the tanks, you know. It's cool.
And like during the desert scene, you can see how fast he was leaping.
Right. Another great thing about this film is that we truly get to see the abilities of the Incredible Hulk. Like, he can run super quick. His jumps, whenever he does jump, he's practically flying.
Right.
You know, he's invulnerable to pretty much everything.
And later on into running away, he go into the city where the military still show up just to like take him down. And he's much more bigger than what he was in the desert.
Right. And then, of course, they pull Betty out of the helicopter, and there she is, there to console him and calm him down. And, you know, we were talking a little bit about the CGI. Do you think it holds up?
For what it's worth, and this is still like 2003, CGI was still trying to figure out, see how it would do for the Hulk. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst either.
Personally, I think a lot of it does hold up. I think they did a really great job. I mean, they're using, motion capture techniques that, they're still using in films today. The Planet of the Apes franchise and Avatar.
Right.
And speaking on the motion capture, Ang Lee himself did the mocap for the Hulk because...
Right, if nobody else is going to do it, you got to do it yourself.
Pretty much. Even though this isn't the best film ever, the best comic book film, I think Ang Lee was onto something here, and he was trying to delve into some deeper themes and really just kind of analyze the character, not on just the surface level, but dive into his psyche. Plus, and that's probably why we have such a big focus of the story being placed on his childhood and like the trauma and the aggression from his father and then just the experiment that he ran on him. All of those things just kind of coming together to form the Hulk at the end of the film, which is interesting.
Yep, good.
That leads us to the end of the film. What did you think about the ending of this movie?
Boring. Like, what was the point of it?
Trash.
Mm-hmm.
The ending of this film was perhaps one of its worst moments.
It's probably one of the worst ending in cinematic history.
There's a little bit of a time jump, and Ross and Betty are on the phone, and it's like, hey, have you heard from Bruce? No, he's dead. And it's like, oh, would you tell me if he was alive, even if you did know? And she's like, no, probably not, just because you're my military father. And he's like, yeah, that checks out. And then we cut to South America. I don't remember what country.
I think we'll just say it's South America anyway.
Some South American forest. This terrorist group kind of rolls up on this camp, and they're wanting all the medicine. And there he is, Bruce Banner, with a blonde beard and hair, and this hat and this jungle-looking fit, trying to blend in. And he tells the guy, no, you're not taking the medicine. And in Spanish, I believe he says, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry, which is an iconic line from the TV show and earlier in the film, which I like that's a line, that he says.
It's very cool when he says this line, but at the same time, it's it's wasted.
It is wasted, and it's why is this the end of the film? Okay, we've shown that he's still alive, he's escaped to this other country. Are you just pretty much saying that it's all going to happen all over again, but in South America? Yeah, okay, sign me up for Hulk 2, baby, let's go. but very underwhelming.
Very, yeah.
Oh, notable moment.
If you're not familiar with the tank meme, it hit the Hulk in the spot where the sun does shine.
There's a little bit of recoil when he's pulling off the turret, and it hits him in the nuts. Yeah, attention to detail, I guess, because Hulk does groan and kind of let out a scream, afterwards. But weird comedy in this film.
Yeah, not a lot of comedy.
There's no comedy throughout the rest of the film, but you have this one little moment of it, which is
just the Hulk getting hit in the nut. It's just weird.
It feels misplaced in this movie. But I mean, some of the scenes maybe you could kind of read as cringe or a meme or.
Right.
So I think it's time to score the film, and I'll go ahead and let you give your score first.
So for my first time watching, and bear in mind, I'd seen it before, but I was really young to not understand anything. So this is my proper first time watching it. I would give it a decent 4.
A 4? Okay.
Only because, it mostly had comic accuracy throughout the film, but it was really nothing to be crazy about in the first place.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go middle of the road like I did with X-Men Origins Wolverine. I think I feel kind of similarly about this film. I personally have a lot of nostalgia bias just because I did grow up with this film. This was my Hulk film as a kid, and I loved it. I don't look at it through the rose-tinted glasses that I did back then. I very much see it for what it is on this rewatch. Poor dialogue. The plot's kind of all over the place. We have way too many cutbacks to this very same memory that Bruce has, and a very underwhelming ending to the movie as well. But on that token, loved the music, loved the cinematography, loved the vibe that we're creating here with the music, and the film very much has a distinct feel to it. It's stylistic, and I do love that about it. Maybe sometimes the style does just get a bit much, especially whenever we've got 8 different shots on screen. Like, this is a comic book, but this is a feature film. So,
right, yeah.
So I'm going to go complete middle of the road, 5 out of 10.
Respectable.
We hope you enjoyed the very first episode of our new show, Buying a Film Its First Drink. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, let us know you liked it. And be sure to check out our other content. We have other shows such as Studio Cinema Saturday, where we talk about movies. We reviewed X, Maxine, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, lots of ape movies and, many more films. We also have Television Tuesday, where we've talked about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Tires, Young Justice, and many other television shows, so go give those videos a watch. And as always, we'll see you at the next watch.